Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Dojo Live. I am Tulio Surgusa, broadcasting from Southern California, and today is Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. Today we're talking about AI, animals, and empathy. What an interesting topic, right? AI, animals, and empathy. Where did that come from? Well, we'll go into it in just a minute. Let me welcome back my co hosts, Carlos Ponce, who's in Cuernavaca, Mexico, and Kim Lantis in Hermosillo, Mexico. Welcome back,
Thank you.
guys.
Pleasure to be here as ever.
And of course, we have our guest, who is John Honchariw. Did I say that right?
Close, like Honchariw. Think of like
Honchariw.
Ukrainian kangaroo.
All right, Honchariw. Love it. Okay, who is the CEO at Companion? And we're looking forward to speaking with you and learning a bit more about this topic that you've chosen today. But before we do that, let's get to know you a little bit. John, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Sure. So I'm an engineer by training. I guess that's how I probably primarily identify. I did a handful of degrees in mechanical, aeronautical, and system engineering, and I love animals and I love building things. So I got very lucky. I got to go to this firm out in San Francisco called Bain and Company and work for a couple of years helping very large tech firms with strategy, kind of right out of grad school. And then I got dead lucky in joining two deep tech startups in very different fields, helped scale up from about 15 folks or so up to a very large company. So both those are, I guess, what you call unicorns today, in wildly different fields. One in silicon nanostructures for lithium-ion batteries. I'm very proud of the fact that we're producing batteries for electric cars today, and I believe the company is going public later this year, which is also exciting, but mainly proud of having an impact in electrification, which I have a passion for. And the second startup was one in cloud services, so wildly different, basically like an app store for businesses. And it was a clever product idea, but we also just got dead lucky in how much hype there was around cloud, and the company grew from 15 or so when I joined about 1,000 within a couple of years. And then when my wife went down to business school at Stanford, I got a weird call from a Google headhunter looking specifically for someone just to work with early research units, which just sounded like so much fun when my wife was in grad school. It was just working with Google X, Google Research, so working with like the TensorFlow team on how do we externalize that asset, in addition to units like Google's robotics unit or kind of some of the other things under that umbrella. And I got to work with just the most fun, interesting, sharp people on a variety of different fields. And that's part of where I got very, very excited about what Companion's doing, which I'll hold off. But that's kind of my story. My wife and I and our son and dog and cat live up in the San Francisco Bay Area and feel very fortunate to get outside and work in the fields of tech and kind of those fields around.
Cool, interesting background, great experience. So, how does it all come together for Companion? How did you bring your passion for all these things and your love for dogs by creating Companion? What is the company charter? What do you do?
Yeah, sure. So at its heart, we're not really a software or a hardware company, although we use those things and software a lot to do some of our more advanced things. At its heart, what Companion really strives to achieve is a better understanding of all the companions, all the animals we love around us, humans included. But where it came from originally was this realization that I was working with robotics teams at Google at the time, and looking at what we had for sensing. So like the sensors on your phone, like, Face ID and the cameras and all that, right? Like there's so many more of these sensors all around the world, in your hand, in your car, in your home. And that was one fact. It's like, okay, all these sensors are coming online. Second fact was all of these animals around us, dogs, cats, babies, toddlers, we communicate so much through movement and posture. So like how I gesture consciously, right? Or the dog sitting by the door, needs to go outside. But also unconscious gestures. So how do I hold myself? Do I slouch? How do I walk? How do I walk over time? How's my dog's tail moving? Its ears, its back, its hips. Is the one hip dragging over time? There's so much psychological and physiological signal in all of that posture movement that we largely miss because humans we're really good at some things. We're really bad at things like that, of picking up those small differences over time. And if you put those two facts together, like, oh my God, we have all these sensors all over the place, growing exponentially. And there's so much signal, there's so much communication already that we largely miss out on from all of these beings around us. Like there's no way over the next 5, 10, 20 years that all of those sensors with perfect memory, infinite patience, much higher precision, don't allow us to understand all that communication. So at its heart, like what we strive to be is we'd love to be an intelligent layer that helps you better understand your dog, your cat, anything around you, all the animals around you. And what we started with, like, given that future, that's just something weird my camera does every half an hour. What we started with is the application that we think drives to that future the fastest, which is start with an animal that everyone loves, everyone spends lots of time and money on. Dogs. Okay, cool. Start with something everybody needs, training. They need it for the entire dog's life. And it's really expensive, but people still pay for it today in the US. And it's not done as well as it could be. And give that to everyone, not just the very wealthy. And then once you have that technology in a device and in a user's home where a dog's really getting actively engaged, the user is benefiting a ton, then you can do far more. And training was particularly good because think of it like a lot of us are volunteers at shelters at Companion. One of the things I used to help teach training classes. One of the things that was always challenging was it's really hard to get people to train to do their homework, right? Whether it's like 200 to 300, it's hard to get 200 or 300 repetitions of sit for every human over the period of like next week or two, right? Because everyone has a job, everyone has kids, everyone has so much going on. Whereas a machine has no problem doing 10,000 repetitions of sit with your dog over the next 3, 6, 9 months. So that the types of consistency and responsiveness that we strive for are just radically different than what people have typically experienced. And it's also really great for your dog. So like we're starting with an unfair advantage, and then we're already starting to demonstrate with like pharma and vets and other folks that we've had join Companion that we can actually do far more, like get into pain detection, helping with separation anxiety, do all these things that were previously just unknown. So anyway, I got to take a love and passion for technology in addition to a deeper desire to better understand all these creatures around us and empathy for them, to use little bits of AI to help us interact with all those creatures.
Interesting. Yes, a lot of the small dogs have major separation anxieties. I used to always think, why do people buy strollers for dog? What's the problem? Well,
Mm-hmm.
some of them you can't leave them home. And we just recently got a Maltipoo, still a puppy. She's learning how to stay alone, but it's very hard for them to stay alone even for just an hour. So let's go right into it. Let's see what we can learn. How you guys are solving the dilemma. And Kim, can you introduce the show today?
Certainly. Thank you, Tulio, Carlos, and John for being here today. The topic of today's show, as chosen by you, John, is AI, animals, and empathy. Can AI help us better understand the animals around us, and also increase our empathy in the world? So, as we've already laid down, and I think pretty much everyone can relate to at least liking one animal. I think we've got a lot of animal talk coming up. So, I would like to first introduce the second half of that tagline, and that is empathy. Why did you choose to incorporate empathy into this conversation?
Mm.
How and why is that important to you?
Cool. Actually, it's the fundamental reason for me doing Companion. I can't speak for all my colleagues, but I think it's the conviction that this was going to happen. There's no way we don't use all of this tech, these sensors, to supplement our understanding of all the beings around us. And that got me really excited because I know if you generate more understanding of beings around you, you will inherently create more empathy. So I think it's both, like, that's the core motivation for doing this, is that generally you create more understanding, you create more empathy. And I think that, yeah, anyway, there's a lot to talk about there, but that is the primary reason why I started Companion. Was there's no way I couldn't do this once I realized that.
John, I got a quick question from the layman's perspective. I'm just curious. When I hear the word empathy, to me that is a description of a soft skills that humans have
Mhm.
and develop, right? So I'm just curious, how do you mesh the two together? How do you integrate a soft skill like empathy with AI, which is a highly technical component?
Mhm.
I'm just wondering how this all happens. Would you mind elaborating a little bit on that part for our audience, please?
Yeah, sure. So, and also, I guess if you haven't seen the videos of how our device and our system works, you probably should go take a look at join. So, sorry for the audience members out there who probably come into this maybe a bit cold. Take a look at the videos at joincompanion.com. We put out some public teasers, but basically, there's a lot of questions in there. I'll try to hit on the very tactical to give you a physical representation of what's going on, and then we'll talk about the philosophical ramifications
Right.
as well.
Okay.
But we use a camera and a computer and a treat dispenser to automatically, and we teach the computer to understand what the dog's doing. So whether your dog's sitting, like walking towards the camera, recall, watching the camera, dog watch, all these different things that you might want to train or help your dog understand or desirable behaviors. The camera watches for those. The computer understands what the images coming from the camera, processes them like, oh, that's a dog, and oh, it's in this desirable position, and then it rewards your dog based on that. So it's almost like, think of it like if you've played some of those like Nintendo Wii games, or if you've ever like been in front of a camera system that can like automatically detect what you're doing, or those autonomous car videos you see. We're using that same technology. So we're using we've taught a computer to understand what the dog is doing, and we're really proud of that, the fact that we've created a computer that's fast enough to do all that, but then also respond to your dog with light, sounds, and treats. So respond to your dog in a way it understands. So what that means is that's the AI piece, right? We're using a little bit of AI to train a computer to how to quickly understand what's a dog, what's a sit, what's a recall, what are all the other positions we want to see to make sure the dog's having fun, to make sure the dog's not anxious, make sure the dog's eating the treats, like how quickly, get a sense of the dog's appetite. There's so much you can determine if you have a superhuman presence, a superhuman computer, like watching all of the things that are signals from an animal, right? And I think to your higher level question, I think AI is a supplement to all that. It's a tool. It's almost like a translator. If you think about it, like the easiest way to probably consider it is like a Babel fish, or like the Rosetta Stone, or any number of analogies, which I'm probably will struggle with because I'm an engineer and I don't have a great vocabulary. But think of it almost like animals. Think of it as translators. Just make it that simple. The device is a two-way translator because it's currently observing actually all of the dog's communications, which are largely nonverbal, right? Like its posture, its movement, it's how the ears are positioned, the jowls are positioned, the back's positioned. There's so much signal in that, and that's what the device is looking at. And it's responding back in a way that the dog understands, light, sounds, and treats. Those are actually the most salient things that we can produce anyway, and for the device. And then we're telling you, Companion's earning its right to tell you like what that means for your dog. Is your dog happy? Is your dog engaged? Like, how's your dog learning? And we do that both through the device software to use that AI to give us a sense of what's going on with your animal. But also, we actually have this amazing Companion coach in the loop, so that you can think about Companion as think of it as like an advanced Peloton for your dog. It's like the really simple way. So think of it like there's a beautiful piece of hardware that we had these amazing designers called Frog Design do for us. We have this amazing, beautiful app, and within that experience is this spirit guide almost with the Companion coach. And these are like top of their field dog trainers, dog behaviorists, who are like the types of people that are very rare to find as if you're looking for a dog trainer. Like they're at the top of their field. I often brag about one woman's background has she literally trained a diabetic alert dog in her dorm room at Princeton. It's those kind of people like who are just really, really into the science. And they're also just really fun to interact with. And that not only do you get to interact with them via video chat or chat through the app, they also get access to all of your dog's data. So they see everything your dog is doing each week as your dog goes through the interactions with the device. And the device is all the heavy lifting, all the practice of sit, all the practice of down, all the practice of recall and watch. And then so your coach just gets to focus on the really fun things. Anyway, so that's the long-winded explainer. But I think at the highest level, we can use there's no generalized AI. There's no AI that's going to teach us empathy or observe empathy or generate empathy. What we can do is use AI to better understand the animals around us, and then that can help us drive more empathy.
Right.
Interesting.
So with this positive reinforcement, when it comes to training an animal, I'm not a dog trainer, but I understand that positive reinforcement is a really amazing component, necessary component, which you've got covered. There's also this element of consistency. And my question comes down to utilizing treats as that positive reinforcement.
Mhm.
So animals are smart, right? They can
Yep.
put that too to get bigger. But we also have to monitor the intake of our pets' food to keep them
Yep.
healthy. So how do you prevent breaking that positive cycle of I'm getting reinforced with this treat, yay, but now I've sat 50 times, I've gotten 50 treats. Like, how do you put on that break? Do you just switch it up with like different tricks, or how does that
Yeah,
function to?
exactly. So think of like there's lots of good questions in there. We're very so to hit it right off the bat, like your dog's health is paramount to us. Like that's the most important thing, right? So we automatically track all of your dog's daily calories with literally every single treat dispense. And so we never go above a certain percentage of your dog's daily calories with what
And
we
you even
think are
track if
some.
he eats it or doesn't. Like,
Yes.
oh,
Yeah,
wow,
so
okay.
that's actually I won't talk about it too much because it's not really public, but there's so much interesting signal in just like your dog's appetite, your dog because it talks about your dog's comfort level, your dog's energy level, like how quickly does your dog approach the treat? Is it comfortable? How quickly can we see? Because we can actually see your dog like kneel down and eat it, right? There's so much signal in just those simple actions. So we know how much we dispense, we know how much your dog eats, and then we know what is healthy for your dog to take in. That's one piece. That's the health piece. On the training side, you can think about it. It's like very similar to just professional, like one-on-one human training, which is
Mm.
really expensive, really good, but most people can't afford, right? So if you have like a professional dog trainer who might charge 100, 200, maybe more per hour to train your dog, they are working with your dog all the time, like doing repetitions, trying to do in different behaviors all the time. And then they also want to keep those fresh. So they'll go back and keep practicing the original behaviors, because if you don't practice, you lose the behaviors. It's like exercise, which is it's counterintuitive. Like 50% of the US knows that 50% doesn't. Just it's like exercise. You have to train a lot to get behaviors to a certain level, and you have to keep training them or else they'll fade away. And with treats, we do it the same way. So you can alternate behaviors. Like you can do, that's what we call our maintenance session. So your dog might do sit, down, recall, like all in one session, and keep practicing just to like really heighten the variance between the behaviors and understanding the different commands. And then also as part of the system, like it's not 100% fully automatic. Like we don't want it to be. We'll do 98% of the heavy lifting for you, like make it really easy to get really great behaviors. But we want you to like in our highest aspiration, you are actually spending more time with your dog in training because it's so easy and so much more fun. So that like
Right.
your
Most
coach
of
is
the time, an unruly dog it's not the dog's fault. It's the owner.
yes, yes. And so we have like the coach is really there for the human, right? It's to give them both like
Right.
how can they be the best possible dog parent with the most leverage their time. And it's
I always joke around to my family. The hardest part of training Roxy, who's our Maltipoo, was actually training the family, not the
yeah.
dog.
Oh yeah, like most dog
So,
trainers will tell you that.
so how does this work? Okay, so you've basically got like a virtual trainer to assist you. Is it done when the dog's by themselves or
Mhm,
the pet? Or okay, so but then you as the user, can you get feedback? Can you get a
mhm.
report on like things that the system observed that you need to work on? How does
Yeah.
that
So
connect the loop
while
with the owner?
Totally. So while you are away, or like while you're working in another room, if you want, like
Right.
companion will interact with your dog 2 to 4 times a day, like 10 to 20 minute sessions, which are ideal for learning, and more if we want to just do like engagement or other things. But for learning, let's just stick with that. Then your dog will have not only the benefit of having like all this engagement and enrichment, which is just super cool. Like people generally have lower anxiety dogs if you have this. Um, and then you will get a recap, an automatically generated video of that session sent to your phone through our app. And not only will our AI actually, not only our AI will suggest what are the coolest videos to send, like typically the cutest ones are the ones where like your dog had that epiphany moment or whatever, right? But our coaches will actually see it too, and your coach will. So like your coach might actually like will see the video coming through and be like, oh, I thought this was a really cool piece of the clip. Check out how like little Teddy just like, went right through this with all the work we've been doing.
Wow.
And here's like another exercise. Like all of this data, um, think of like the devices as independent agents. They can work with your dog independently in your own home. And all of those devices send back videos to the mothership. They send it back to Companion HQ. specifically for the benefit of your dog, because that means our coaches can see everything your dog's doing, like as a kind of almost like a post-game recap, like in football, right? Both ways. I know we have both sides of the border. So American football and regular football, like any sport, you have a post-game recap. Think of like those videos and the comments, the persistent chat you might have with your coach afterwards. So you can always like look back and kind of track over time how your dog was doing. But we'll send you like bespoke updates on how your dog is doing. And like the short answer is you get really cool videos, and you actually get a human touch to tell you how your dog is doing and how you're progressing on that really leveraged path that you've been working on with your coach.
Yeah. Instagrammers must love this.
Yeah, exactly.
We
all the curating for me.
It's actually we haven't yet let folks really share them easily from the app, because we're still been in kind of stealthy private testing. We can't wait to do that, because we think we can't imagine like a more engaging app, right? Like you get 2 to 4 like really cool videos of your dog every day doing awesome things. Like people love those. So we can't wait to open the floodgates on that.
That'll certainly be a great way for you guys to get more adoption, get a few influencers to do that and automatically post stuff. Everybody's going to want that. So speaking of everybody's going to want that, what's the model like? Is there purchase, or you're doing like a SaaS kind of a monthly thing? How does someone actually start with Companion?
Yeah. So like right now I guess we've been shy for the last 3 or 4 years as we've been building this above one of the largest animal shelters and hospitals actually on the West Coast, the SFSPCA. We've been humbled to be there at their invitation and kind of headquartered there as we generate the models and generate the animal interaction work early on. We just announced our funding, so we've taken, I guess now actually a little bit under 10 million from who we think are some of the leading folks in the space, like the biggest pet company in the world, one of the biggest animal charities in the world, fun folks like consumer celebrities like Jimmy Kimmel and his venture group Wheelhouse, and some others, design companies, that kind of thing. And so a roundabout way of saying, like, that's when we announced those funders and investors earlier this year, and then we invited the public. We had never posted anything publicly. We've only done kind of private paid testing and that sort of thing over the last couple of years. So we just invited the public to sign up if they'd like to be on the invite list earlier this year, I think in the beginning of Q2. And so we're now starting to ship some of those units out of our manufacturer in the US. So we're slowly sending out units. Please be patient with us. We have many, many more reservations, right? It's a great problem to have, but we have many more reservations than we have units for in the near term. And because we want to scale. We're not familiar with anything else like this, and we want to scale in a way that we make sure that the experience is just as magical as the last batch of users. So we want to do that thoughtfully. And to your question on the model, it's very similar to Peloton, very similar to Tonal, kind of Whoop, like where the hardware is very accessible. Think of it like a monthly. In addition, there's a monthly component to the service as well. But what we found is that it compares extremely favorably to what people typically in our demographic typically spend on their animal every month, with dog walking, dog day boarding, like all these things that are really important for a dog's engagement, training, etc. And so we hope that it's actually something lower cost, more engaging, more fun, better results in the convenience of your own home. So we want it to be just a super compelling offer. It's going to be premium. Like that's the one thing, at least for the next year or two, we want to be super open about that. Like we've seen other companies like Tesla and Peloton and others like do that really effectively. It's typically the best path for new technologies is you have a higher end demographic or a higher income demographic pay for the first rollout, but then they really subsidize the nonprofit work we do in the shelters. In addition, they help us subsidize the development for lower cost versions of the service, which might include a lower cost piece of hardware with less design finish or maybe like a lower service tier. But our goal is to make it accessible to everyone. It's going to be for like the Peloton crowd in the near term, but we want to get it out to everyone as soon as we can. And we're starting off immediately with doing nonprofit work in shelters. That's
awesome. And congratulations. It's huge and exciting. My question goes back to something you mentioned much earlier in the show. Yep. And the inability of people to really pick up on small things, especially these small things that are accumulating over time. Like you wear glasses, I wear glasses. Everybody here's wearing glasses. Like, do you remember the moment where you?
I don't actually need them.
Yeah. For real? Okay. Well, I have
really.
vision issues. And I remember the first time you put on glasses, you're like, holy cow, I had no idea that my vision was that bad. So going back to the health side, I think the
Mhm.
fun, the perk, let's get our dogs trained. But is there this application of, that right leg seems to be getting worse, or they're not responding to the audio cues anymore, or these things that might kind of build up? So health applications for your pet, and then would there be a future application even in hospitals, physical therapy for
Mhm.
people? Like, how big do you see this technology getting?
Oh, I think it's. I mean, we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on animals around the world. So, just in terms of total market opportunity, we probably spend $1 trillion around the world on animals generally, and that's companion animals is 200 billion, livestock's 200, 300 billion around the world, and then all of the money we spend on like deer fences, on like those barb things for pigeons, on like all of these like weird indirect ways that we actually interact with animals, like not very intelligently today. So like generally, the opportunity to more thoughtfully interact with animals around the world is massive. Um, the there's so much to do there in terms of I'll talk to the highest level on what we're doing on the health side. We've only really announced it at a couple of vet conferences, which we were humbled enough to be recognized for over these last number of months. Which we were, everyone looks at the public website. It's like, oh, it's a dog training company. Like, that's really awesome. Like, that's cool. I don't want to distract from that, but like, we're already doing some things we thought we wouldn't be doing for a couple more years, which is like we've already been able to identify like when dogs are in pain and the owner didn't know. If you think about it, like when we're training, it's almost think of it like, your car lights come on when you turn the ignition key, like they all come on. And it's to help you understand that, oh, they're still working. Like I know when I need that check engine light, it'll come on because I can see that it came on for that first 2 seconds. Think of it almost like we're doing it with your dog's body and mind every day. The companion is exercising all of those things, right? We're teaching you you're teaching your dog all of these motions, these postures, in the convenience of your own home, so that every day your dog is performing all of those motions and more, right? And so our computer can instantly see when your dog might be more hesitant to do one of those motions, like maybe it's going from a sit to a down. And we've been able to see immediately, like, oh man, there's something going on with that dog's front shoulders, and the owner doesn't know. Why don't we like export that video for the user, send it to them, like give them a recommendation to go talk to their vet about it and show them that video, and then
Yeah, check engine.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's this, and so that's valuable for any dog owner, but especially for those who have a dog near end of life, or whose dog has just come out of surgery, or just a variety of. I mean, it's generally really helpful to train. It lowers anxiety. It's generally really helpful to keep your dog active and engaged, both mentally and physically. Like that prolongs life and leads to a great life. But then, like beyond that, which we can do with companion, there's also this all of these weird implications that become not obvious, but become more intuitive once you realize that this device can have an automatic long-term conversation with your dog that your dog enjoys. And so, and once you see that, you can look for differences over time and what's going on. So like our intention, training is like the easiest way to talk about what we're doing with your dog at first, but the other way to put it is we're teaching your dog to communicate with this device. And then once you can do that, there's so many other things that you can help owners with. And like we were humbled to have the founder and CEO of Fear Free, which is one of the largest veterinary movements, kind of like in the U.S. Like he joined our board recently, as long as like Ken Ramirez, who runs the Karen Pryor Clicker Academy, arguably kind of the leading training school. And what Marty, the Fear Free founder, was excited about was, I mean, just two very simple things. Like one, like, man, we get to see how dogs are doing in their own home, which is their comfortable environment, because they're never comfortable when they go to a vet, hospital, or the vet, right? Just totally different. Like that in itself is transformative, let alone being able to do things like introduce your dogs to noises over time to help it become more comfortable. Sorry, I could go on and on, but I'll stop there.
Yeah, no, amazing. We're up on time, but go ahead,
John. Yeah, I was just going to say, John, we need to wrap up. Unfortunately, I mean, time flies when we're having fun all the time. But there's one more thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is for those viewers out there who might be watching, who might be even wanting to come work for you at some point. What would you tell these people? What is the company culture like? What is important for you when it comes to building a great atmosphere, a great company, and building a great team?
Cool. So I think the things that I think we really look for. So in simply, like, it's kind of like Google, but for but for people who specifically like animals and dogs. And I think we try to take some of the best attributes of companies we worked at before, and it's integrity, trust, empathy is huge. So you don't necessarily need to have pets or dogs or cats, but just if you have empathy for them, like that's probably what we look for. We want you to have empathy for users, for humans. We want you to have empathy for the animals we work with. And I think the biggest thing is we want someone who wants to laugh each day. We want someone to say they're wrong each day, like people who are confident enough to know when they're wrong and to learn from it. Like that's great. And we're 100% virtual now. Like we have folks all over the country, and we get to have fun with it. So like next in a month and a half, we're going to Anchorage, Alaska. Like we're taking the whole team up there for close to a week to have an offsite. So we do kind of every quarter, we do a bunch of in person. So like the relationship, and we actually have a separate budget for people to travel just to work on small projects with each other to get that in person time. So I think it's to the culture, to your point, transparency, integrity, trust are like those are the kind of table stakes for everything. And obviously you want like super capable people. You want them to be really passionate. And I think maybe that's where I'll end the answer is I think what I really look for is what I interview for almost exclusively is passion. Like are you that passionate about something? And if you are, what is it? Do you want to like push a field forward? Do you want to like really do right by your colleagues? Do you want to build something beautiful? I think the people, you tend to get the best products from people who are passionate. And that can be on the product team, the eng team. It can be anywhere. It can be in the design team. So anyway, I'll stop there. But I think that's kind of how I think about culture.
Excellent. Thank you so much, John. Okay.
What an amazing business and product you've created. I'm signing up for sure.
Cool.
I know. I'm like, where do I send my resume? No, I'm kidding.
Like, how do I get in? How do I get to the backdoor ordering system? That bypasses all the people online. No,
we get asked that.
I know. I'm sure you do. Everybody wants to be treated like they're special. But anyway, it's been great to have you.
Special.
Yes, more special than the other guy or gal. So anyway, it's been great to have you as our guest. We'll have to stay in touch with you to see how this progresses along. What an amazing story and a product and service coming together, disrupting, and there's such a need for it. So stay with us as we go off there in just a few minutes. Carlos, we got one more show tomorrow. What do we got coming up?
Yeah, Tulio, thank you. Tomorrow we're going to be speaking with Aaron Guyette, the CEO at Pedestal, and we're going to be answering the question, how can software engineers, startup founders, and virtually everyone empower themselves to overcome failure? And that the topic is going to be why you will fail and what you can do to stop it. That's the topic for today's conversation right here on Dojo Live at 12 p.m. Pacific. So join us and be safe, everyone.
See you then.
See you then.
Bye-bye.